Ashley woke up in a cold sweat. Immediately, she realized that she was at home, with Daniel sleeping next to her. She made an effort to silently get up and leave the room. She didn't want the guy to look at her with a sorrowful gaze again and ask if she wanted to see a doctor. It had happened before. Just like today, she had the same nightmare. A nightmare that had been haunting her for several years now. Interestingly, when she was little and lost her parents, she never dreamt anything like that. But now, as an adult, this nightmare repeated itself over and over again. Each time she woke up screaming. She used to be in a relationship with Arnold. They were headed towards marriage, but one night he simply couldn't take it anymore. He followed her, but instead of embracing her and comforting her like before, he just packed his things in the bag. Ashley asked in a trembling voice, "Arnold, what are you doing?" He looked at her with anger in his eyes and replied, "Me? I'm leaving. It's unbearable to live like this. Regularly, several times a month, you wake me up with this insane scream. I can't take it anymore. I'm losing my mind." "Already?" she asked. "Yes, already! Because you've long turned into a crazy person, and you refuse to understand it. I don't want to have a mentally unstable wife. I don't want children born to a crazy woman." Arnold left, slamming the door. In the dream where buildings collapsed, volcanoes erupted, and a cloud of ash and dust covered running people, including her parents, stopped haunting her. For a whole year, Ashley couldn't recover from Arnold's actions. She waited for the dream to repeat, but it didn't. And Arnold never called again, which erased Ashley's mind a bit. She was just offered a chance to change her field of work a little. They suggested moving to the other side of the country, where the company was opening a new branch. She didn't hesitate for a second. What did she have to lose? The apartment was rented. The house where she happily lived with her parents was located in a village almost 100 kilometers away. The neighbor promised to look after it, but honestly, if it burned down, Ashley wouldn't be upset. She had tried to visit there a few times, but it was too painful. They used to live here as a family. Grandma, Mom, Dad, and her. Mom and Dad were rescuers, not just regular rescuers, but those who went on distant missions, saving people not just from forests, but during massive fires, crashes, earthquakes. Every time they went on another mission, Grandma would cross herself for a long time. She never asked them to quit such a dangerous job. She only prayed while they were away. She prayed and silently cried, thinking that Ashley couldn't hear her. On that day, Grandma decided to make pancakes with jam. Ashley always loved them. Mom and Dad were on another mission. The TV was on in the kitchen. Suddenly, Grandma froze. The news was showing on TV. Ashley didn't quite understand what they were saying, but Grandma stood still, watching the footage of an erupting volcano. Ashley looked at Grandma in fear, but she remained silent, staring at the screen. Her eyes looked empty. Then the doorbell rang. Ashley rushed to open it. Standing at the doorstep was a man in the same uniform her parents wore. That's when Ashley got scared. She was only 14 years old when she was left without parents. After the man left, Grandma sat there in silence. Ashley cried softly. She was so scared, so hurt. She couldn't believe she would never see her mom and dad again. And on the TV, they showed the footage again, where a cloud of dust and ash was descending upon people. She hoped that maybe, somewhere in that scene, her dad or mom would appear, but no. There was a deafening sound behind her. Ashley turned around and screamed. Grandma was lying on the floor, her eyes fixed on one spot. She wasn't sent to an orphanage. The family of her parents' superior took guardianship of Ashley. She was very grateful to them. They tried to surround her with love and care, sending her to study at a prestigious university. Of course, they couldn't replace her mom, dad, and grandma, but they at least tried. The most important thing was that they didn't let Ashley break down emotionally. The girl rushed to the kitchen, poured herself a glass of water, and sat on a chair to catch her breath. Why? Why did it happen like this? It had been 12 years since her parents were gone. She sat there for a long time. Then she glanced at the clock. It was almost time to get up. So what was the point of going back to bed? Ashley made an omelet, a few sandwiches, and went to wake up Daniel. but he was already awake. "Hey, darling." "Hey, why did you wake up so early?" Ashley looked at him intently. I wonder if he heard her running away. They sat down to have some breakfast. Ashley was even able to drink some coffee. Daniel didn't live with her, although he often stayed overnight. It seemed to suit both of them. But in the end, Ashley began to doubt the seriousness of his intentions. Not once had he hinted that 6 months was enough time to finally get married. Well, she wasn't going to propose to him herself, right? Daniel left first. They worked in the same company, but in different offices and departments. The time before lunch flew by unnoticed. Well, Daniel probably had his pastry already and, not waiting for her, left. She quickly walked to the cafe, and when she came out, she immediately saw Daniel. He was standing a little to the side of the door, talking to some girl. "Seems like your crazy girlfriend wasn't there for lunch." "I don't know. She was screaming and running again last night. It's getting unbearable." "Then why don't you leave her?" "I feel sorry for her. Who else would need her?" Ashley stepped back. What she heard shook her so much that she rushed back to the office. In the evening, Daniel called. He always called when he didn't stay overnight to wish her a good night. Ashley stared at the phone and didn't pick up. When the phone stopped vibrating, she sent a text message. "I'm in a psychiatric hospital. Don't call me anymore." Daniel called several times. Then she received a text message from him. "You really are crazy." Ashley deleted his number. Then she felt a sense of relief. Somehow, she was sure that she wouldn't have that nightmare again tonight. And she was right. In the morning, she woke up feeling lively and cheerful. She looked at herself in the mirror and said to her reflection, "Well, what? Shall we start a new life?" She went to work as if nothing had happened. She chatted happily and smiled. Right after lunch, Daniel appeared in the office. "Ashley, can we talk?" She looked at him calmly, even kindly. "About what?" "About us. What's happening?" "Daniel, why did you come? You don't love me, and therefore you don't care. Did you come because it's expected? Well, that's just silly, don't you think?" Daniel stood there, not knowing what to say. Well, fine for him, but why wasn't Ashley upset? It was actually a big blow to his ego. He tried again. "How are you now?" "Me? I don't understand the question, Daniel. I'm certainly very grateful that you spent a whole 6 months on some crazy person, but didn't I manage to live without you until I turned 26? I think I'll manage just fine from now on. Leave." Ashley smiled at him radiantly. Daniel turned around and headed for the door. She watched him leave and bent over the papers. "And what was that?" "Tina, how many times do I have to ask you not to sneak up on me like that?" Tina, who was also Ashley's friend, smiled playfully. "Tina, go back to work. After work, let's grab a bottle of champagne to celebrate this thing, and I promise I'll tell you everything." In the evening, after learning all the details, Tina looked pensive. "Do you have any vacation days?" "Well, I think so," Ashley said, then paused. Her friend had come up with something extraordinary again. "Tina, I'm not going anywhere. Last time we almost drowned because you thought that those who hadn't kayaked had never truly lived." Ashley shuddered as she remembered that weekend when Tina convinced her to try kayaking. If it weren't for Ashley's good physical condition, they wouldn't have made it. They wouldn't have coped. Not only did Ashley have to hold on to a log to avoid being swept away by the current, but she also had to support Tina because it turned out she wasn't a good swimmer. "Well, don't yell. I won't drag you anywhere. Let's just go visit my grandmother. She lives by a quiet lake." "Doesn't she live with her parents?" "No, actually. She's not my grandmother, but my great-grandmother. I don't even know how old she is, but we definitely need to visit her. She's a witch, so she lives far away from everyone." Ashley burst into laughter. "Tina, what kind of witch?" Tina gave her a sly look. "Ashley, but how will you know if you don't check, right?" Ashley felt grateful for Tina. Sure, she held herself together. She was strong. But deep down, it still hurt. Was it her fault that she had nightmares? Why was she being treated this way? And now, because of these nightmares, was she destined to be alone forever? They had been navigating the winding path between the trees for an hour already. "Tina, you said you knew a shortcut." "Well, I've been here before." "Damn, I must have taken a wrong turn somewhere." Well, turn on your GPS. You should have navigation on your phone. Ashley, what good is a GPS here? There's never any signal. Tina spun the wheel and bumped the car into a tree. Great, now we've definitely arrived. Tina and Ashley got out of the car. They circled around it, paused, then circled around it again. Why? Why is that every time you take on something, the most innocent task turns into an adventure? And most of the time, it's far from safe. Ashley, why are you always yelling? I know every little bush around here. Oh, really? Well then, show us where to go and, more importantly, how to get there. Tina was about to respond when they heard a loud snap. A branch had broken. And if it had broken, it meant someone had broken it. Perhaps a bear. The girls screamed and found themselves back in the car within seconds. A shadow fell on the windshield. They shut their eyes tightly and heard a cautious knock. Oddly enough, a bear wouldn't knock. The knock repeated. Ashley cautiously opened one eye and saw a man looking mockingly at them through the window. Beautiful ladies, are you lost? William, just what we needed. Tina jumped out of the car and hung on the guy's neck. William laughed. Tina, you're already a grown, respectable lady, and you still throw yourself at everyone's neck? Well, not everyone. Ashley, meet my childhood friend. William took Ashley's hand in his and smiled. William, what are you doing here, in the woods? The same question could be asked of you. We asked first. I stopped by my grandmother's to check in on her. Tina sighed. We were also going to our grandmother's trying to take a shortcut and got lost. Tina, when was the last time you drove through the woods? I can't remember, about 3 years ago? Well, no wonder. Let's see what you've gotten yourselves into. William crouched down in front of the car, and Ashley watched him with pleasure. He didn't try to appear cooler than he was. His muscles were visible under his black t-shirt. He took off his jacket, and Ashley noticed a belt with cartridges around his waist, the kind hunters wear. She scanned the area and saw a rifle leaning against a nearby tree. Are the keys in the car? Tina nodded, and William got behind the wheel. Within 5 minutes, he confidently drove the car through the forest. A short while later, they arrived at a large clearing. On one side was the forest. On the other was a lake. And Ashley even gasped. This place reminded her of an illustration from a children's fairy tale book. She stepped out of the car. Oh my goodness, it's so beautiful. William turned her around by the shoulders, facing the lake. Look. He clapped his hands loudly, and swans ascended from below, soaring into the sky. Ashley froze. This can't be real. It can be. William turned around. And here's Grandma. Tina, why did it take you so long? I even asked William to see where you disappeared to. She embraced her granddaughter, but Tina stepped back for a moment. Granny, how did you know we were coming? Oh dear, don't you think I can feel when my granddaughter is approaching? Ashley looked at her grandmother with wide eyes and she chuckled. Don't worry, dear, I won't bite. My name is Paula. And what's yours? Ashley. Oh, that's good. Let's go inside quickly. The pies will cool down. Tina jumped up. My favorites, the ones with meat? The old woman smiled. Of course, your favorites. Thank William for the meat. Ashley loved it here. Such tranquility, such beauty. By evening, she and Tina went to the lake. Tina, what about William? Who is he? Does he live here? Oh, he used to live here. When we were little, we were very close friends. Then he moved away with his parents. But now he's back. I don't know why or for how long. Why do you ask? Ashley blushed suddenly and replied, Just curious. Wait a minute, my friend. What's going on with you? Tina, stop it. What's gone into you, acting like a child? Ashley, it's love at first sight. Oh, come on, stop talking nonsense. You know, this is the first time I approve of your choice, especially since he couldn't take his eyes off you either. 5 days of vacation flew by like one. Ashley knew that her fondest memory would be William. She realized that for the first time in her life, she had met a real man, the kind any woman would dream of. But William didn't make any moves, even though Ashley was certain he liked her. He joked around, grilled meat for them, and even took them fishing. On the last day, William left quite early. My vacation is over too. I'll be leaving tonight. We'll definitely see each other again. Ashley watched him until he disappeared into the woods, then turned around and met her grandmother's gaze. Her eyes seemed to penetrate deep into her. "Come, dear, let's go. We'll talk and have some tea." Tina wanted to go with them, but her grandmother stopped her. "Granddaughter, don't be offended, but you know we need to talk in private. After all, you brought your friend here for this purpose, didn't you?" "Yes, Granny. I'll take a walk by the lake then." The old woman brewed some tea. "Tell me, what's troubling you?" "Oh, nothing special. I often have a dream. A nightmare. Those scenes when my parents died." "How often does it happen?" "As soon as I start dating someone, the dream immediately comes. I scream, wake up, and they think I'm crazy." "Does the dream occur when there's no man by your side?" "No, not once. Do you think it's my parents' way of telling me that he's not the right person for me?" "Your mom and dad have nothing to do with this. You subconsciously understand that this guy is not right for you. So you believe in the fairy tale you made up for yourself. But at night, when the mind sleeps, the soul wakes up. Don't worry, my dear. You'll get married even sooner than you think. And you won't scream in your sleep because you'll truly love your husband." As her grandmother spoke, Ashley felt her eyelids getting heavy. "Sleep now, and let's see what you dream about." Ashley woke up as suddenly as she had fallen asleep. The old woman was sitting at the table. "Ashley, who did you meet in your dream?" "Oh, you can't imagine. I was talking to my grandmother. It felt so good, so joyful to see her. She was just the same as before." "And who else?" "Our neighbor. I don't remember him well." "Anyone else?" Fear crept in. Grandma Paula was looking at her with very dark eyes. If during the day her eyes were blue, very light, now they were not even brown, but black. "I don't remember. I don't know. I don't think there was anyone else." "What did your grandmother say?" "She scolded me, told me to go home, that my parents were worried." "And what did you say?" "I don't remember what I replied." "That's good. Ashley, listen to me. I rarely make mistakes, but now I'm afraid of making one. You met everyone who has passed away in your family, but your parents didn't come to you." "Yes. Why?" "It seems to me that they're not among the dead, but even among the living. I don't see them. There's no thread that should connect you. You see, it's as if they didn't die. But if they are alive, they don't know you." "How is that possible?" "I can't say for sure. I've told you everything I knew." On the very first day, Ashley bumped into Daniel at a cafe. "Ashley, let's talk. Where did you disappear to? You left without saying anything. I could have been offended." Daniel looked at her playfully, and Ashley realized that all her wonderful mood after the trip was simply evaporating. How could she think that she loved this person? "Daniel, we have nothing to talk about. We were wrong to think that something could work between us." "Ashley, my patience is not limitless. I'm telling you again, I can get offended. Forever." Ashley wanted to smack this self-centered fool. "Daniel, leave me alone. Is that clearer to you?" She walked away, and Daniel watched her go. What was happening to her? So bold, so not the same as she used to be. Maybe she should give it another try. Ashley couldn't focus on her work. She kept thinking about what the old woman had told her. And by the end of the workday, she had made up her mind. Her boss, seeing her, said, "No more time off, and even if there is, don't bother asking." Ashley sat down opposite him. "I really need it, honestly. Otherwise, I'll have to quit." "Ashley, what's happening to you? Where are you going?" "I need to go home." "Will a week be enough?" "You're the best boss in the world." Ashley ran down the stairs. She had already booked her plane ticket. Now she needed to pack her things quickly and head to the airport. "Ashley!" "Daniel, what else?" "We need to talk." "I'm asking you not now. Better yet, never." Daniel grabbed her hand. "Something is happening to you now. That's why you don't understand what you're doing, but I forgive you." "Let go of me." She tried to free her hand, but Daniel held it tightly and painfully. Release the girl. Ashley immediately recognized that voice. Startled, Daniel let go of her hand, and Ashley rushed into William's embrace. Oh, there it is. Don't worry. She'll find a replacement for you just as quickly. William, I only have 2 hours, and then I have to board the plane. Plane? Where to? It's a long story. William opened the car door for her. She told him everything, from the moment they showed the news on TV many years ago. William drove the girl to the airport, and there, he kissed her and said, I'll be waiting, but if you need my help, just call me, and I'll fly to you. Ashley pressed against him. Just wait for me. He laughed. Well, I waited for 30 years, so I can wait a few more days now. The girl walked slowly down the street. Here is where she went to school, and there is where her grandmother turned when she went to the market on Sundays. Now she just needed to pass 2 more houses, take a turn, and she would see her home. Perhaps it was already destroyed. Ashley, is that really you? She stopped. In front of her stood an elderly woman wearing a hat. It was the same neighbor who was supposed to look after the house. Hello, Ashley greeted her. The neighbor suddenly burst into tears. Finally, who informed you? They couldn't find a place for themselves. They searched all the surrounding towns. Who? Ashley asked. But the neighbor suddenly fell silent. Her eyes widened. Ashley, you don't know anything, do you? What don't I know? Speak clearly. What happened? But the neighbor couldn't utter a word. She only whispered, Run home. And something clicked in Ashley's mind. No, she didn't think that her parents would be waiting for her at home. Or did she? She quickened her pace, and then she started running. Ashley stopped. The house didn't look abandoned. The windows were clean, with flowers on the sills. Perhaps she had some relatives who found her? Yes, that must be it. She approached the door. In the backyard in the gazebo her father had built for her sat a woman. Who was she? Maybe a relative? Or maybe a complete stranger? How much she resembled her mother. Maybe a sister. Why not? Ashley realized that the woman couldn't see. She was blind. And Ashley recognized her immediately. Mom! Ashley screamed so loudly that birds flew off from all the trees nearby. The woman slowly stood up. She looked at Ashley. Ashley? My daughter? The girl rushed towards her. She grabbed her, hugged her, held her tightly. She sobbed uncontrollably, unable to hear her own words. She only repeated, Mom, Mommy, Mommy. The woman kissed her hair. My dear daughter, my little girl. And then someone lifted Ashley up into their arms. My little girl. It was the final blow. Dad? Late at night, they sat around the table, describing how Ashley regained consciousness, thinking it was another dream, would be beyond words. Ashley's father began to tell the story. 12 years ago, it happened to us too. We had a slightly different mission there, but that doesn't matter now. Basically, nobody bothered to rescue us from there. We became the people who were simply not needed, here and even considered dangerous. For 5 years, we wandered without any documents. If we had approached people, maybe they would have helped us, but our lives wouldn't have been worth anything. And then, due to an injury, your mother's vision started fading. There was nothing we could do. We had to return from the mountains. We were immediately thrown into prison. 6 months ago, they changed our names to the names of other people who had committed similar acts in our country. Everything has changed here. Your mother has already had surgery, and the doctors say there is hope. We searched for you. It was only yesterday morning that I found your city. I didn't know your phone number or the exact address, but your mother and I decided to come. We wouldn't have found you from here. We've already bought the tickets. How are you doing? You haven't been here for 10 years. You didn't leave any contact information for anyone. It was difficult for me. I didn't want to. I couldn't. I wouldn't have come back. But a kind old woman told me that you were alive. My dear daughter, I don't know if I'll ever see you again, but I'm sure you're the most beautiful to me. Ashley's mother gently caressed her hand, and her father immediately added, Don't doubt it for a second. They went to sleep towards dawn, Ashley in her room and her parents in theirs. Everything was as it used to be, as it was many years ago. Ashley sent a text message to her friend. My parents are alive. I'll explain everything later. In the morning, she was awakened by voices and the clatter of dishes in the kitchen. Ashley reached out and picked up her phone. There was a message from her friend. "William went to get you." Ashley tried to get up, but the door swung open. William appeared in the doorway, deep in thought as he chewed on a sandwich. For some reason, Ashley burst into tears, startling William. "Why are you crying?" he asked, concerned. Ashley and William got married. They had a daughter together. Ashley's mother returned home after successful surgery, and she smiled warmly. "My dear daughter, I always knew you were a beauty," she said.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children. With zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job. Having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their inn. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong. Mike, what have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.